If everyone can take their seats, we're going to get started with our meeting. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It is 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, March the 22nd, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. I'd also like to welcome everyone in our City Council chambers, as well as Brady Johnson and our listening audience at WCBU. I'd also like to welcome the audience watching via Cable 22 and to our reporter from the Journal-Star, Mr. J.J. Bullock. I want to say thank you for being here at every council meeting. I understand that this is your last meeting, J.J., and we want to wish you best in your new job elsewhere. But thank you for the time that you've spent in Peoria and the contributions that you've made. Okay. Madam Clerk, the council mics are open. Can you please call the roll?
Mayor Ali.
Present.
Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Sear.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Euler. Here. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Here.
Councilmember Rockriegel. Present. And Councilmember Velpula.
Present.
We have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Hey, thank you. Please join me, everyone, and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk.
We have two proclamations.
Our first proclamation is for acknowledging Peoria Reads. And I'd like to ask that Roberta Kochelski come to the podium along with Alice Jackson. Ms. Kochelski is the Peoria Public Library Deputy Director and co-founder of Peoria Reads, and she retires from the library in May after 38 long years. Ms. Alice Jackson is the Peoria Public Library Program Manager, and she heads the Peoria Reads Committee. Here's our proclamation. Whereas the Peoria Public Library and various community partners have worked together since 2001 to present Peoria Reads, a One City, One Book annual initiative that promotes community participation in reading. And whereas Peoria Reads encourages Peoria to read the same significant book at the same time to bring our diverse community together to promote a better understanding of ourselves and our own humanity. And whereas participating in Peoria Reads will encourage reading, will increase opportunities for discussion between people of all ages, and will deepen readers' appreciation for books dealing with important issues. And whereas this year marks the 21st anniversary of Peoria Reads, and whereas This Is Where You Belong, Finding Home Wherever You Are by Melody Warnick has been chosen as the 2022 Peoria Reads selection. Whereas learn more about the book, accompanying programs, and volunteer opportunities on Saturday, April 23rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Peoria Public Library North Branch, 3001 North Grand Parkway. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby recognize the 21st anniversary of Peoria Reads in Peoria, Illinois.
Mayor Ali, for recognizing our 21st year of Peoria Reads through this proclamation. Also, thank you for acknowledging my retirement. That's a surprise. Not that I'm retiring, but it's a surprise. and they weren't long years at all. That's the fun thing about working at the public library is every day is different, and you never know what's going to pop up. And I hope retirement is like that too, in a good way. So the 21st year of Peoria Reads. Every year we select a significant book that's readable and enticing for people to read. And also that leads to a good discussion of the subject matter. Our Peoria Reads Committee is led, of course, by Peoria Public Library, but we also have valuable partnerships, including representatives from Bradley University, Methodist College, and Neighborhood House, to name a few. The mayor and each council person should have already received a copy of This Is Where You Belong, and it includes a bookmark that lists a few of the many programs that Alice has planned for this year. If you don't have a copy of the book, you can find copies to check out at Peoria Public Library locations, regular print, large print, audio, or of course you can go to our website and get an ebook or e-audio. Our website is peoriapubliclibrary.org. For this year, we've chosen this book because it helps us celebrate where we are in life and perhaps helps us deal with some of the challenging issues in our world right now by, getting together with our neighbors or other friends or meeting someone new at a local business or a local restaurant. It'll also inspire you to love where you live, whether you live here in Peoria or in some of the surrounding cities, and also whether you're a new Peorian or have grown up here or you're a transplant from somewhere else. Our new Peoria Reads chair is Alice Jackson. I had mentioned a year or so ago that 20th year is going to be my last year for me, not knowing I was going to retire when I am now, but 20 years was enough of leading it, so let's get someone new, and no one better than our manager of programming at the library. So Alice is going to talk about some of the fabulous programs that are coming up in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Roberta. First, I also want to say Roberta has been not only the co-founder, but the fearless leader of Peoria Reads for the last 20 years. She's guided us, the community, the library, through discussions of classics such as The Great Gatsby and tough topics such as the opioid epidemic and aging parents. She applied for and received a number of National Endowment for the Arts Big Read grants that provided free books and programs to the public. She also has spearheaded partnerships with the City of Peoria, as well as a wide variety of community partners. So she is definitely leaving some big shoes to fill. So enough of that. So you all have this amazing bookmark that was created by our graphic designer. And this year we have a very interesting mix of programs for you all to take part in. Next week we will have a panel discussion focused around Peoria transplants. April 3rd, we will start the first of a series of community walks with our very own pedestrians in Peoria. And April 7th, we'll have a virtual visit with the author Melody Warnick. That's at 7 o'clock on Zoom. Roberta mentioned one of our partners is Methodist College. April 28th, they will hold a symposium exploring the concept of happiness as it relates to art and science, and that is open to the public. The committee also will host a number of book club discussions, a volunteer fair, which you mentioned, and a series of story times at our Riverfront Market and also Springdale Cemetery. So that's sure to be fun. We'll wrap up in September by celebrating Good Neighbor Day at our McClure Branch and Columbia Park. So watch the library's website for further details and more programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson, and thank you, Ms. Kochelski, for your great many years of contributions and service to Peoria and Peoria Public Library.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Our final proclamation is recognizing Parkinson's Awareness Month, and we have Roger Haleen and with his service dog, Molly. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic progressive disorder of the nervous system that affects movement for which there is currently no cure. Whereas 1 million people in the United States are currently living with Parkinson's disease, an additional 50,000 to 60,000 new cases are diagnosed each year, making Parkinson's disease the 14th leading cause of death in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease Control. And whereas every day through research, patient and family services, and education, the American Parkinson's Disease Association provides the support, education, and research that help everyone impacted by Parkinson's disease to live life to the fullest. And whereas increased efforts and awareness are desperately needed to help expedite the research efforts into better treatments, medications, and ultimately a cure, to help those impacted by Parkinson's disease live life until a cure is found. Whereas the world, the nation, and the state of Illinois observed Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month in April 2022. And whereas the state of Illinois recognizes the efforts of the Central Illinois Parkinson's Support Group to raise funds and promote awareness to fight Parkinson's disease, thereby improving the quality of life for those living with the disease. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby recognize April 2022 as Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. Mr. Helene, thank you for being here, and Molly.
For Parkinson's. So we've got a long ways to go. We've had a lot of advances in science and medical technology, but we haven't gotten there with Parkinson's yet. Some of you, I think, realize this is probably my 16th year. My wife is on her 17th year of Parkinson's, and unfortunately, she took a hard fall last night and can't be here with us tonight. She's just moving too slow. So we want to thank you for everything you've done. I also want to take a minute and thank the organization Pause Giving Independence. This is Ollie. Ollie, you can show yourself off. But this is Ollie. This is a service dog that is being trained for her. It's being trained as a facilitating dog, so I will be in charge of it. We're roughly about 4 class sessions from being able to take the ADA test, and then they will assign the dog to us permanently. But they're a wonderful organization. They do it all volunteer. They spend 2 years with these dogs, training them before they begin to work with us. We started working with Ollie in early November. He spent a couple weeks in early February with us, and a couple weeks the end of February, early March with us, and now he's on his 3rd and hopefully final home visit, as long as he doesn't bark like he did earlier. That's one thing they're not to do in public, but if anybody knows anybody that needs a mobility dog, they do an amazing job of working with you to train the dog for what you need. So I just wanted to give them a plug too. And once again, thank you. And Sid, I think you mentioned it, you know, when another year's gone by. I hope some year I don't have to stand here and thank everybody for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halling. Thank you, Ollie, and please give our warmest regards to your wife. Okay, thank you. Before we move on, I'd like to recognize some other familiar faces in council chambers. Mr. John Morris, who is the executive director of the Riverfront Museum, also a former councilman who served 2 terms, I think 8 years with the Peoria City Council. John, it's good to see you here. Along with Mr. Bill Conger, and they are here to, if there's any questions related to the George Washington bust that's on the consent agenda, so we may or may not hear from you, but we want to thank both of you for being here, Mr. Conger. And also we have Ray Lees here, the planning program manager at Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. He's going to give a presentation a little bit later on our agenda, but Mr. Lees, we thank you for being here as well. Madam Clerk?
We are at the minutes.
Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move to approve the minutes of the joint City Council and Town Board meeting held on March 8th, 2022, as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Seer. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We have 2 town items. 22-090 is a communication from the town officials with a request to approve the agenda for the annual town meeting.
Councilmember Graham, trustee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move to approve the agenda as outlined for the 12th of April.
By trustee Jackson. Questions, comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-091 is a communication from the town officials with a request to approve an intergovernmental agreement regarding tax collection duties with Peoria County and the Peoria Township Collector.
Councilmember trustee Graham.
Thank you, Chairman Ali. As promised, Treasurer Morris, I would like you to approach the bench here and be prepared to recite. He knows that I'm going to call on him because this is going to involve some change for our constituents, and he's going to explain the rationale behind it. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Manager, Council, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this resolution. I want to start by introducing Nicole Bierke, who is the Peoria County Treasurer, who's here tonight in support of this. Let me give you a little background quickly. Peoria is the last county in the state of Illinois that has townships collecting property taxes. Every other county in the state has townships no longer collect property taxes. The statutory repository for property taxes is seated right there. It's the Peoria County Treasurer. So when the township of Peoria collects property taxes, call over and say, Nicole, here comes the wire. That's all we do. There are 53 locations where you can pay your taxes in the city and county of Peoria. You can pay online, you can pay in person, you can pay by mail. I asked Nicole about this, and she explained to me that they would do it for us for nothing, through an intergovernmental agreement. Now, who will be affected by this if we stop? And let me give you some scope in terms of what we're talking about here. She collects approximately $300 million in property taxes. The Township of Peoria collects approximately $10 million. Most of that is through relationships with banks. Some of it, and you council members have probably noticed, in the months of June and September, you see some more foot traffic into City Hall. There are a certain number of people who pay in person at City Hall. Those people will still be able to pay in person at any number of those bank locations. Those people will still be able to pay in person at the county courthouse. They simply will not be able to pay in person at City Hall. This is going to save the township approximately $40,000 a year moving forward. I think it's an opportunity for efficiency. It's an opportunity for good government. If this resolution passes, the township collector will be removed from the property tax bill, and there'll be an outreach effort to those people to let them know that if they still want to pay in person, they're going to have to go to one of those banks, or they're going to have to go to the county courthouse. What I would say in conclusion is this is going to be a good thing for the treasurer's staff, because I'm a big fan of keeping the main thing, which is city business. So I think the township will be helped by this because they're going to have an extra $40,000 a year in their budget. It's a policy decision whether they want to give more direct assistance or they want to turn down the levy. That's up to them. But this just makes total sense. 101 other counties have already done it. And so I hope that answers some basic questions, and I hope that you will vote to approve this tonight.
Any questions from council for Mr. Morris? Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No questions, except take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Treasurer, and Ms. Berkey, for your foresight. We talk a lot about streamlining government and intergovernmental cooperation, and I think this is a fine example of that coming to fruition. So thank you for your efforts, and on behalf of the taxpayers, thank you.
I give all the credit to the lady seated to my right here. And this intergovernmental agreement will be a good thing for the city, the township, and the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Euler. Oh, just a second before you go. I think we might.
You're fine. Not a question. I just want to comment that, as a citizen, we watch and complain as elected officials make campaign promises that are never fulfilled. So I'd like to thank you, Treasurer, for actually doing what you campaigned to do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Thank you, Ms. County Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes, I move to approve as outlined.
Seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at the consent agenda. 22-092 is a communication from the Mayor and Corporation Council with a request to approve the declaration of local state of emergency. 22-93 is a communication from the City Manager with a request to concur to allow the transfer of the George Washington bust from Fulton Plaza to Peoria Riverfront Museum. 22-94 is a communication with a request to approve and direct the city manager to execute an agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation in the amount of $31,001 plus contingency for the city's participation in the state Section D4 mast arm replacement 2022 at Illinois 40 Knoxville Avenue and West Pioneer Parkway, Illinois 40 Knoxville Avenue, and West Detweiler Drive, and Illinois 116 Lincoln Avenue and Southwest Jefferson Avenue. 22-095 is a communication with a request to approve the following items related to the Pioneer Parkway Extension Project, Radnor Road to Allen Road. A, an amendment to extend funding obligation AL 13412 and AL 14355 associated with a local agency agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation for land acquisition efforts. And B, an amendment to extend funding obligation AL 13363 associated with a local agency agreement with IDOT for preliminary engineering. 22-096 is a communication with a request to approve an incumbency certificate and resolution accepting a grant from the Illinois Housing Development Authority for the Strong Communities Program in the amount of $45,000. 22-97 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R1 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 5628 North Knoxville Avenue. 22-98 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance rezoning property from the present classes of CG, general commercial with R4 and R4, single-family residential districts, to I2 Railroad Warehouse Industrial District for the properties located at 113 Van Buren Street, 201 Van Buren Street, 205 Van Buren Street, 2112 Northeast Madison Street, 2111 Northeast Jefferson Street, and 2133 Northeast Jefferson Street. 22-099 is a communication with a request to approve the site application to add a subclass 1A 2 a.m. closing hours to an existing Class A tavern liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for MAGA Investments, LLC, doing business as Tavern on Prospect, 5901 North Prospect, Suite 10, with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. 22-100 is an appointment by Mayor Ali to the Metropolitan Planning Organization Technical Committee with request to concur of Assistant City Engineer Paola Mendez Silvagnoli. 22-101 is an appointment by Mayor Ali to the Housing Commission with a request to concur of Brian Uhlenhop. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any items to remove from consent? Councilmember Graham?
22093.
Thank you. Others? Councilmember Kelly?
22099.
Are there any other items? May I have a motion to approve the consent? Councilmember Seer, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-093 is a communication from the city manager with a request to concur to allow the transfer of the George Washington bust from Fulton Plaza to the Peoria Riverfront Museum.
Councilmember Graham?
About a decade and a half ago, we had a very enterprising, young, new wave councilman who sat on that part of the aisle, that part of the horseshoe, who worked very hard to bring this George Washington bust to Peoria and helped to raise money to do just that. And recently, the bust was struck by an errant vehicle and the base was damaged. This bust is a legacy piece. It shouldn't be on the public way so close to the street. I am glad that we have a city manager who is concerned about preserving this piece, museum piece, for future generations who would be coming to the Riverfront Museum. I was somewhat torn when I heard about this mishap. Manager, I was visiting with you in your office, but I think this is for the good, given the high quality of what we have here in Peoria. Councilman Director Morris, could you please approach the lectern and talk to us a little bit about the safekeeping you're going to provide for future generations?
Thank you, Councilman Grab. Mayor Ali, distinguished members of the greatest city council of the greatest city in America, thank you for welcoming me back tonight in my capacity as the President and CEO of the Peoria Riverfront Museum. And on behalf of the Board of Directors, thank you for the offer, Mr. City Manager, to send George our way. Many of you know that while Alexander Hamilton is known these days as a musical, Alexander Hamilton is the Secretary of Treasury and the right hand to George Washington. Lost his son to a duel, and then would lose his own life to a duel to the Vice President of the United States, Aaron Burr. And anybody who's seen the musical or read anything about Alexander Hamilton knows this. But what we may not remember in Peoria is that another son of Alexander Hamilton, named William Hamilton, would grow up to be a land surveyor. And his most famous project was the laying out of the streets of one of the most historic early cities of the Midwest, Peoria, Illinois. And it was William Hamilton that lined up the streets: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. But in homage to his late father, perpendicular to those streets, he ran Hamilton right up through Peoria. So our city is incredibly historic just to have been around at that point. In 1831, we were founded, but we date back to 1680 when the French settlers first came here, arguably the oldest continuously settled city in the Midwest. So, as Chuck referenced, it was many, many moons ago. You're the only one left on the council, where in my 8 years of civic duty, I did come up with a scheme that maybe my alma mater, the George Washington University, and President Stephen Joel Trachtenberg would give the bust to Peoria. It was an outlandish request, and he honored it and delivered the bust here as a gift, and we raised money to install it so that many, many years later, some errant driver would nearly wreck into it and crush it. Not the intention. But for months, as you all plan your plans for the streets of Peoria, the word had come to me that perhaps the Peoria Riverfront Museum would be interested in this Avard Fairbanks designed sculpture. Fairbanks, also the preeminent sculptor of Lincoln, chopping wood down at New Salem historic site in Illinois. So now, in a moment of irony, Chuck, you're offering the George Washington sculpture to remain in the ownership of the city of Peoria, which I orchestrated back in the day to make sure it would always be with the people, but on loan to us. And we, if you should decide, we will humbly accept and pay the freight to move the founding father in a meaningful way to the street William Hamilton designated as Washington at 222 Washington, the address of the privately funded nonprofit museum called the Peoria Riverfront Museum, and 222, the birthday of George Washington, February 22nd. So, with that, Madam Mayor, if offered, we accept. The decision is up to you, but we would be honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. You're also a poet, you know that. Beautifully said, articulated. And Madam Clerk, please let the record be corrected that Mr. Morris is the president and CEO of the Riverfront Museum. Thank you very much, Mr. Morris.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Graham?
Thank you very much, Mayor Lee and Councilman Morris. Once a councilman, always a councilman. I would move to concur with this request to allow the transfer of the bust from Fulton Plaza to the Peoria Riverfront Museum.
Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Any other comments, questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-099 is a communication with a request to approve the site application to add a subclass 1A 2 a.m. closing hours to an existing Class A tavern liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for MAGA Investments LLC, doing business as Tavern on Prospect, 5901 North Prospect, Suite 10, with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve.
Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was mistaken in pulling this off, so I would move to approve.
Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We have one presentation. 22-102 is a presentation from the Heart of Illinois Port Authority, and we will need a motion to receive and file. Plus, on your desk, you should have a copy of the presentation in blue, and then there is also a handout of PSA in yellow.
Mr. Manager, I think we start with you and then go to Councilwoman Jensen.
I would actually defer to Councilwoman Jensen.
Oh, thank you. As a member of the Heart of Illinois Port Authority Board, which I have been for quite some time, since 2007, I thought I'd introduce our presenter tonight and give you a little bit of background. We recently received federal recognition and designation as an Illinois waterway, I guess, statistical area. And that's pretty significant, and it can have a significant economic impact on Peoria and the other 9 counties that are in the waterway. So Mr. Lees is here today to tell you a little bit about the Port Authority. We assume some of you around the Horseshoe may not even know about us, and so he's going to give you a little bit of background and some statistics, and then talk a little bit about this new designation and what it can mean. I'll turn it over to you, Ray.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, council members, distinguished council members, and city manager, it's hard to follow John Morris. Sorry, I'm just not quite the articulate presenter as John is. Anyway, yes, thank you for that introduction. I know time is short, but I'll try and give you a very brief overview of what is going on. And the next slide, as Councilmember Jensen mentioned, I'm going to be giving a little bit of information on 2 subjects and kind of giving you a follow-up, a very brief reference to a third, and that is the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District. It's not a port authority, and I think we should get the name right. And then, as she mentioned, one of the things that I have been working on for actually 2 years was the getting the designation from the Corps of Engineers to become the Illinois Waterway Port Statistical Area, which I'll get into in a minute. But first, let me just kind of give you an overview of the Port District. As some of you may remember, back in the Jim McConaughey days and Ryan Spain and Steve Yeager, we established and with the help of Senator Kaler and others, we were able to establish the Port District through a legislative act with the state of Illinois, giving us quite a few powers, not unlike municipalities. And it was established, as it indicates there, in 2003. They were active for several years and had pursued a number of opportunities during those early years, and nothing came to fruition. The initial funding was from the 6 counties involved, and the funding ran out, and Steve Yeager retired, and so unfortunately it kind of went into a state of dormancy. Didn't go away. We're still very much a legal entity, and within the 6 counties, it's you might be surprised to learn that there are basically 30 terminals in that area, and that stretch along the Illinois River, and they're all of all different sizes. They do different businesses, and so it's just one of those things that a lot of river activity. Unless you're a boater, you probably don't recognize and see much of this, and yet it's going on all the time. And this gives you this map is the 6 counties. Fulton, Mason, Peoria, Tazewell, Woodford, and Marshall. You'll notice a little dark section of Mason County, and that is basically the Port District of Havana, which they established basically with their airport, and then they do have some riverside access and activities, and so that's what that little spot is in the middle of Mason County. And then there's just a listing that you can't see. But this map came out of a study that was financed by the IDOT, and finally IDOT themselves is recognizing that marine commerce is important to the state of Illinois, and we better get a little better handle on what's going on and the economic impact. And so there's a study that was done last year and accepted by IDOT, and so finally another mode of transportation, water transportation, is recognized at the state level, and we need the designation of the Port Statistical Area kind of comes at a time when there's a number of things happening within that whole marine area. Hopefully I got more than 27 minutes there, or 27 seconds.
You're fine. Right? Okay. You're fine, Mr. Lees.
So moving on to the Illinois waterway in the Port Statistical Area, that was established the end of last year, and as I say, it's a designation that is received from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There's an office out in D.C. somewhere that is a central office for all of this stuff for the entire country, and you have to present basically a case study for why you should be designated a Port Statistical Area, and it involves mostly the collection of data and the river commerce, basically that's coming in, through, and out of our 6-county area, and so when we're looking at doing this, and we were the 6 counties of the part of Illinois Regional Port District were designated as kind of the lead port district, because we have as a metric, we do more business than any other stretch of the river outside of the Chicago area. So So, but within this port statistical area, which was designated the Illinois waterway, we attach the 5 counties north of us that reach up to, I believe it's Grundy County, another 5 counties that's basically in the north central Illinois Council of Governments service area. And so that's why that is 10 counties and not 6. So we've captured most of the Illinois River, and as Councilperson Jensen had mentioned, it does give us some more access and mostly visibility nationally within this whole marine commerce realm, and you have to get most of the, well, really all of the credit for this. I was just kind of a support person, but it was Colonel Bob Sinkler that was the person that really saw the vacancy, if you will, within the Midwest of this, and he not only helped us get designated as the Illinois waterway, but he also worked with the folks at the Quad Cities to get another port statistical area established there, and then one down in Quincy. So there are actually 3 now that represent the bulk of the, there you go, that's the Illinois waterway port statistical area in green. And so, so that's something I'll touch on a little later. But you know, what's the so what, and why is this? You can go to the next one, Patrick. And why is this important to the city of Peoria? And the kind of the answer to that was in this marine economic impact analysis study that was done by IDOT, and you'll see there that on that it obviously everybody recognizes that most of that commerce is going to be going on in the Chicago area. But if you look in the middle, you know, Peoria and Tazewell are right up there at the top of the list, and Woodford trails a little bit behind. But there's but those are that's the you know, the forecasted growth of marine commerce in our area. So Peoria and Tazewell are right in the middle of it, and therefore, again, the nod for leadership in all of this, even in the entire Illinois waterway, is looking at Peoria because of where we stand with the amount of commerce that is going on. So again, just going to the benefits, the federally recognized multimodal port, the regional marketing and economic development activity, and the things that Crissetti and his team at GPDC can work with in attracting businesses, and then the improving regional, national, and global competitiveness. And again, it's an issue of getting on the radar in this particular area of the economy. And then the other thing, as I mentioned earlier, it does give us an edge from the standpoint of prompting more public and private investment and attracting investment and funds from the Maritime Administration, the U.S. Department of Transportation, MARAD, and then also just the multimodal and infrastructure that can be supported and financed through some of the mechanics of having access to these other granting agencies. So with that, and then obviously the service to the state of Illinois and the communities, you know, that may be disadvantaged at this point, not taking advantage of some of these things. So it's really a broad you know, application of benefits. Now, one of the other things that, and you'll have to look at your chart in hand, but this spreadsheet came out of, again, that economic impact analysis study that was done by IDOT, and you'll see at the top there that the HR, Heart of Illinois Regional Port District Transport, And the statistics as you go across there, and you can see that from the standpoint of total tons, even in 2017, we were by far and away the largest metrically of this commerce index, and so again, it's one of those that when I started to get involved in this, I knew a number of things about the river, but I didn't know this kind of thing was going on, and it's almost kind of like the silent economy unless you're down at Peoria Barge and Tom down there or other folks that are in the business and in the terminal business, but there's a lot going on, and we just wanted to make this the city and all of you folks aware of what's happening, and hopefully the establishment of the port statistical area is something that is going to be enough of a movement to move forward and expand and really leverage this economy to a greater degree than we have in the past. So we're just about to embark on actually submitting a proposal to IDOT for some of their funding to support studies, and it's going to involve basically doing a master plan of our port district and ask for funding to retain a group of folks that really know their way around that business and really put the plan together to execute for the next decade or more. And I don't know, the last one I was going to mention is as I indicated with the port statistical areas that were established after ours, but they nonetheless are on the books now, is Quincy and Quad Cities. And what Colonel Sinkler has done is and he's a retired commander of the port of the Corps of Engineers up in the Rock Island District, and so he has come with this concept to actually pull all of these ports together, newly established ports, and designate them the Corn Belt ports. And so he's out there on the national kind of stage, if you will, and pushing that concept out. And when he does mention to it, people scratch their heads and say, why hasn't this happened before? And that's exactly what his point was, is that here we are in the grain belt for corn and soybeans. We move more of that and produce more of it in Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois than any other place in the country. And so now we're finally going to, be recognized for that. And again, Peoria, with the tonnage that we move more than Quincy and Quad Cities combined. So again, they look to us as kind of the leader in this initiative, and so hopefully we can stand up to the task and kind of move forward and provide the leadership and involvement that we need to move this forward. So with that, I think I'm out of time, but.
Well, I think we might have some questions for you, Mr. Lees, and you held your own behind John Morris. So this is very educational. I think oftentimes we don't think about our waterways. We don't think about our waterways being systems for commerce, marine commerce, but apparently we're growing in that area, so that's very encouraging, very exciting. The first question I have is relative to funding through the new infrastructure bill or otherwise. Is some of that funding going to be just a direct allocation, or is it always going to be funding that you have to apply for through a competitive process?
Well, most of it is competitive, and one of the things that in just kind of to expand the answer a little bit to that is to get down to dollars and cents, is that the state of Illinois, as they attempt to get back into the game with the maritime commerce, they appropriated $110 million. This is the guys in Springfield, and to support capital improvements to port districts. Okay, but it was I think it was like a 30-day turnaround. So if you didn't have your plans ready to go, if you didn't know what you wanted to do, how you wanted to plan it, what it was going to cost, and all that, you're out of the game. And so that's another reason why we need to get prepared. So the next round, because they had asked for 280 million, they only had 110. So the legislators know that this is kind of a big deal, and it's a growing deal, and so but those grants are all competitive.
Okay.
And they were begging me to put something together, just write something on a piece of paper and send it in, and we weren't anywhere near putting anything credible together. So we just said, well, wait for the next round, and we'll see what comes out.
Great. It's nice that you're going to be ready when the opportunity comes. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Lees, for your presentation. I think this is a wonderful thing for our area. I do have a clarification question, at least that occurs to me. In the table that you presented, you showed our district having, I guess, related employment of 27,000 people. Could you explain that a little bit, please?
A little bit. Yeah, that's about all I can do, John, because I didn't put that data together. But what I can tell you is that when you look at the entirety of the river that is supported, my presumption is that the people doing the study were taking in everything that had to do with the river, whether it was directly related to shipping and commerce on the river, whether it was suppliers that were repairing the barges in Chicago or wherever wherever they were in our area. And so it was all the employment associated with that. So it's not, I looked at that number too and said, really? And so I'll have to dig into that one a little bit more and see if I can find some more detail as to how that number was generated, because that's a significant number when you think about it. But again, a lot of this stuff was not on any of our radar, and it just kind of happens, and you see the barges up and down all night long or all day long and all night long. So anyway. Sorry about that, but I will find out, John, let you know.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment. Thank you for the presentation today, sir. And I think that this is just an illustration. As we look to grow our economy, we definitely have to keep that regional focus. And a part of that, growing our economy holistically, is investing in our ports and our water infrastructure and our waterways. And so thank you for the forward thinking and making this a priority. As we look to take this area to the next level, we are going to need this investment. So thank you.
Councilmember Jensen, you want to wrap up?
Well, I just wanted to thank Mr. Lees for getting into the nitty-gritty and for being here. And I look forward to the opportunities that this recognition is going to provide. I think it's a real plus for the city and the whole region. So stay tuned for more to come.
Do you want to receive and file?
Oh, sure. I'll move to receive and file.
Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lees.
Thank you very much.
Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at regular business. 22-103 is a communication with a request to approve the Small Business RISE program using American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask Cesar Suarez from our Economic Development team to come forward and to discuss the proposed RISE program for your consideration this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be here because it's always exciting to help out businesses in time of need, and that's what this particular program is about. Most of you know the purpose of ARPA is to really counter the effects, the negative impacts that COVID has had on our business community and our economy. And so what economic development has been doing over time is responding to that need. Earlier on, when we know that in March 11th of 2020, the World Health Organization declared it a global pandemic, and our global economies and our local economies have struggled. And so the federal response is the largest economic stimulus package with CARES Act, and then followed by the ARPA as well. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about the response the city has done under both programs. Under CARES, the city has helped about 130 businesses with deploying about $2.7 million under 3 different programs under the CARES Act. And I think that really speaks well of the kind of work in the past 2 years that we've done to support businesses through the struggle of COVID. But today is a different stimulus package known as ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. And you might have heard programs like the PPP, EIDL, RRF, and Big One and Big Two. These are all programs that help businesses. And so what we're doing here with ARPA is the City Council has allocated $2.4 million for economic development in 2022 and 2023. So $2.4 million each year. And so what's already happened is, of course, our organization, our department, has already stood up 2 programs, facade and commercial rehab, and job training. What you have before you is not really one program. It's 4 different programs wrapped into what I call a mega program or a big program, really based on the acrostic of RISE. And I wanted to go through each one of them for you. If you want to follow me with overall the matrix and go through it really quickly and show you how those 4 programs sort of interweave and work together. The first one is recovery support, and that's the first R. The second one is income support on the I, and then startup support and expansion support. So if you look at how business has been affected, they've been affected in many ways, and how they're responding to COVID is also very different. So each of these programs, the R, I, S, and E, part of the program addresses a stage that businesses are in. So, for example, the first one, recovery support. There are still businesses recovering from their losses. And so we have a program that's designed for businesses that have suffered losses. And so with that, we can make a response to those businesses. So I call that recovery funds for businesses that suffered losses. The second one is income support. There are businesses right now that perhaps already have recovered from the losses, but they're having difficulty sustaining their operation. And by providing income support, we can provide them with runway funds. This allows the businesses to survive or continue on with their operations for the next 6 months. A lot of them I've known that I've talked to have trouble or have difficulty keeping current with their rent or utility bill. So the runway funds under the income support will help that kind of operation or stage in which that business is in. So there's recovery and there's income support. The next one is startup support. How do we help businesses start up in the economy or restart after they've closed down? And so that's a different type of program for startup funding, and we receive those as well. So a business startup under COVID is going to have greater challenges than ever before pre-COVID, mainly supply chain shortages, labor costs, labor recruitment, and so on. And so there's a program for startup businesses, and that's the S. And then, of course, expansion. There are businesses out there that want to expand under this environment, and so we have a program for business expansion opportunities. So altogether, we have then the recovery support, income support, startup support, and expansion support. And in this matrix, you can see the eligibility of those businesses, the response that we have, because when we define the harm under the U.S. Treasury rules, we have to respond appropriately in reasonable measure to the proportion of the harm. We also list the eligibility, the ineligible businesses, the uses. So these funds could be used for operating expenses or capital expenses. And really the main difference is that we can identify a business that's disproportionately impacted. They can start tapping capital funding. So that's on page 1 of the matrix. If you go further down in the matrix, we go as far as talking about the required documentation. Again, these are just initial sort of documents we need. I'm certainly will build more up to have that. And then if we have an award formula that you see that we have is there. And so we're going to refine a lot of this as well. And of course, the disbursement of funds will be also, whether it can be a one lump sum up to $50,000, or it can be also dispersed in portions as well. And then, of course, the application fee of $50. And so that really is a summary of a program that's really 4 different programs wrapped them into one called the Small Business Rise Program. Any questions then?
Thank you, Mr. Suarez. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, sir, you did not have that jacket on when we were talking downstairs. And so I see you. But no, on a serious note, though, just a point of clarification. It says administrative approval up to $50,000 will be limited on a program-by-program basis and a round-by-round basis, and then the applicant may receive a grand total of $50,000 more by applying for more than one ARPA program. So essentially, we're going to be spreading the $2.4 million over that 4-year period of the grant or the funds, and a business can only get $50,000 each year. Is that what that's saying?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, and I failed to mention that, but $2.4 million is the 2022 allocation. And so a business can apply for, within a given year, apply for round 1 or round 2, or they can apply for any one of the 4 different programs in full or in part. What you'll find out is that a business won't qualify for the entire amount under, let's say, recovery losses. Let's say they lost $10,000 of net income, and that's just the amount they get. But let's say they want to also expand. So they would apply for the recovery fund, but they also can apply for the expansion fund as well. So in one case, they're getting $10,000 for recovery losses, but they might want to have an expansion project where they're investing $30,000 in putting up, let's say, an outdoor patio. And so altogether, they'll get $40,000, but it's 2 different programs, 2 separate applications, because the documentation is different, the eligibilities are different for all 4 of those programs. So in full, is it possible that a business can apply and receive $50,000 from each of the 4 programs? Technically that could be true, but I think practically you won't see a business applying for all 4. And if did, again, the bottom line is that our funding in terms of what we provide to any business has to be in proportion to the harm. And what we're going to do as staff is identify what that harm is, and not to be in excess of that harm. It's got to be proportionate to the harm.
And I see that it has an equity focus because these funds can only go towards businesses in the qualified census tracts, correct?
Yeah, and it's a good point, too, with regard to whenever capital expenditures is used, we have to have what we call a greater qualifier known as disproportionately impacted entity. That entity could be a business within a census tract, a qualified census tract. There's 15 of them that's below. It's on their map, and if I can direct you, that there was an additional item there on the map, but basically south of McClure, except for about 3 different census tracts, is the area we would call qualified census tract. So yes, the money when it comes to capital expenditure will be more directed at the qualified census tract. That's an entity of geography, but it's also an entity of what they call disproportionately impacted industries, which is also below on the map. We've identified several different industries that relate to hospitality, tourism, travel. They're all listed there, so you can think of restaurants throughout the entire city would qualify for a capital expenditure project, and they can apply for the expansion or startup program and receive capital funding. Capital funding is defined as either machinery equipment or building material improvements for interior renovation, exterior renovation, and so on.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Graham?
Yes, Mr. Suarez, how are we getting the word out to our business community?
Real good question. And what we've learned about getting the word out is basically we use two broad approaches. There's the wholesale approach, where you market it in the typical media, newspaper, radio that we have in the past, but we found that doesn't really reach the population we like to, and so we do a lot of retailing, phone calling, door knocking, and we've done it already before. One of the programs that the ED we ran before is we received 100 applications, and more than half of them were also people of organizations of color, and we were able to get into the areas where there was a lot of African American and Hispanic and Asian businesses that applied. Traditionally, you don't see that. I mean, if you go and look at programs across and see what level of participation in terms of equity is concerned, we've done a great job, and we'll continue to do that on the retail side. So no matter what we do on the wholesale side, mass marketing, we're going to have to do a lot of door knocking. And so what we do is we work through groups called community navigators. They're set up right now. We have that through the Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Peoria Chamber of Commerce, Minority Business Development Center. All these people are set up to do retailing, door knocking. They have computers. They go to the businesses, and they actually fill out the applications online for the businesses, not only for city programs, but also for state and federal programs. That's set up right now, and we can thank the state of Illinois for setting up the Community Navigators program. So a lot of retailing is how we're going to get the job done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Jensen?
Well, I think it's a great program. And thank you for all your work on this. And I move to approve.
Is there a seconded by Councilmember Jackson? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-104 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to approve a resolution amending the comprehensive plan to include the nearest South Side housing needs assessment and the community revitalization plan.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that we have Community Development Director Joe Doolin here, as well as Assistant Community Development Director Leah Allison are here to answer questions and talk about this plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mayor. This is a process that was started back in late 2018, 2019. It was a partnership with the Illinois Housing Development Authority to do some housing needs assessment and some planning specifically around the South Side, the North Valley, and the East Bluff. Unfortunately, mid that process, COVID happened, so it definitely stalled the momentum for each of these plans. So for a while, they were slightly stalled. The mayor and I had a meeting with the Illinois Housing Development Authority. We were very lucky that one of their top leaders there is Karen Davis, who used to be in charge of LISC Peoria's office. So she's very connected to the Peoria community, very passionate about trying to help us as much as possible. Ida, in that meeting, said they were looking for us to give them some direction for future affordable housing projects and future funding that might become available in the community. And part of that direction sometimes entails adopting these plans that were created. So with that, we decided to separate the plans accordingly, and we will be bringing back the East Bluff plan at a future meeting. The North Valley plan still needs some more work after some resident feedback. It wasn't at a place where we felt the community in the North Valley was supportive, and moving forward with it at this time just didn't see to be able to go along with what the residents wanted. However, with the South Side plan, it's very interesting. It's a very large document. Essentially, the reason behind adopting our comprehensive plan to have this as a part of it, it sends the message to IDA when developers for affordable housing projects come forward that we have a strong passion to improve the South End, specifically 61605, with some additional housing projects when those programs become available. Specifically in the plan, they talk about some goals that the city is looking to achieve in that section of the city of Peoria. And ironically, probably when we started the process back in 2019, we didn't have programs and funding in place to address many of those goals and recommendations. They were just that, goals and recommendations. But because COVID has changed a lot of dynamics throughout the city of Peoria, one of those is the ability to actually launch some additional funding and programs with our American Rescue Plan money. The programs that Economic Development just highlighted that specifically talks about targeting businesses in the qualified census tracts, the community development programs that are coming forward that were approved by council about 2 months ago for down payment assistance programs specifically in the qualified census tracts, for increased demolition work that will primarily focus in 61605. All of those really align with what the plan had already identified as goals and recommendations. So with that, answer any questions about what we're trying to accomplish with this, and any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Director Doolin. Any questions? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a comment. I just want to thank the staff and your leadership, Mayor, for putting this program together and getting us on track to where we will eventually finally be able to bring some new and affordable housing to a community that has not seen it in a long time. So I just like to thank you, and I look forward to the opportunity to move this process along. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very welcome. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd also like to commend the flexibility of IDA, Illinois Housing Development Authority, on this. I attended these meetings before COVID, and one of the things that seemed to come out pretty loud and clear at the time in the neighborhood meetings was that they were not keen on subsidized, nice, big, shiny new buildings of subsidized housing. None of these neighborhoods seemed to want that. What they wanted was home ownership, or the promotion of home ownership. There seems to have been a move in that direction in this document, and that to me is far more helpful for these neighborhoods, and certainly the neighborhoods feel that way as well. So I commend IDA for its flexibility in this, and I think this concentration on home ownership and helping people who are currently homeowners and prospective homeowners will serve the city and these neighborhoods very well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember. Member Galpula.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Director Doolin, for your comprehensive report. I just have one clarification question. In the packet that you provided on page number 14, you outlined what was the land use currently. So you show that you have particular number of owner-occupied and there are non-owner-occupied commercial land space. Let's say this is what it is right now, but after the revitalization, would you be having a projection to see what would be changed to really understand what the revitalization plan is going to do to that south side? Because it's a big document, I understand that, and it's a tremendous work in that. But just in a simpler terms, let's say if I compare what was done, what was before, and what would be done, probably that will help, and people will appreciate the amount of hard work and thought process that went to it. It's just a clarification and suggestion. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple comments. I want to first thank you, Mr. Doolin, and all your staff. I know some of them are no longer here, because this was a long process, and I participated in the meetings as well. But it's a very thorough report and plan, and I just want to, make a note too. It had substantial community input. At the meetings I went to, there were a number of residents at the meetings, and I know when you guys were doing the surveys for that 3-month period, over 149 residents and employees of the near south side filled out and completed surveys. So this is really an example of, truly good government getting public input, and IDA conducting further meetings and tailoring and modifying and creating the plan based on what the citizens' input was. So thank you, and I support this wholeheartedly, and I'm glad to see it moving forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jensen, and thanks for pointing that out. I think it's noteworthy that there was, over a lengthy period of time, a lot of community engagement in this process and in this assessment and planning process. The community development staff and I and Councilwoman Jackson met with the Southside Community United for Change, the umbrella organization over neighborhood organizations over the South Side, and they're looking forward to seeing this move forward. They've seen a lot of migration from the South Side to other parts of the city because of the lack of affordable housing in that area. As you know, the first district lost almost 4,000 residents to other districts, and housing had a lot to do with that. So, this planning, there's a lot of vacant property, there's a lot of boarded up property, a lot of properties that are scheduled for demolition. But this is an opportunity for us to create more senior housing, more homeowners, more leased housing in an area that desperately needs quality housing. So thank you and your staff for this work, and I would ask for a motion to approve. Okay. Council Member Jackson?
Madam Mayor.
Yep, sorry about that. There we go.
Let me see.
I think Paul and I are in competition here. Councilwoman Jackson?
Madam Mayor, I would like to make a motion that this item 22104 be approved.
Seconded by Councilmember Valpula. Other discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-105 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from staff with no recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to adopt an ordinance amending existing special use ordinance number 9126 as amended in a Class R3 single-family residential for church facilities to rebuild the sanctuary building and a new bell tower for the property located at 10811 North Knoxville Avenue.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you. I'd like to probably defer to Councilman Sear if I could let him discuss where we're going to go next steps.
Councilmember Sear?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to defer this item for 3 weeks until our next meeting, April 12th.
Seconded by Councilmember Valpula. Any other comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-106 is a communication with a request to adopt an ordinance providing for the issuance of $9,291,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2022A of the City of Peoria, Peoria County, Illinois, for the purpose of financing road and parking lot improvements in the Warehouse District TIF, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on the bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Mr. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item, it goes along with the action council took regarding the construction of a parking lot in the warehouse district between the 800 and 1000 block of Washington Street and the extension of Commercial Street in this area. Unfortunately, our costs have increased as we've seen the costs of material go up. So this request is to incorporate those additional costs. We'll also be coming back to you with the establishment of a special service area because there are costs that are incorporated in here that are really attributable to each of the buildings that we want to apply those costs back to the building owners as well. But this is the first step, which is just the resolution to approve the issuance of this debt.
Okay. Any questions for the manager on this? Councilmember Velpula?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I see that the total project cost is coming to $9,291,000. But in reality, by the time it's a 16-year-old project, and we are seeing like we are trying to. So in simple terms, we are borrowing $9.2 million with a fixed interest rate of 3.24%. So by the time by the time this is completed, we are actually seeing an increase in $3 million towards the interest. So the total cost of this project is not $9 million, but it's $12 million by the completion. But the document says that we are going to cover that by providing 875,000 TIF increments. My thought is, since we already have surplus, we are saying we are having surplus money. So would it be a good idea to kind of put down some payment so that we can reduce the interest? Since we said we have some surplus money coming into the general fund, so would it be a good idea to front load some payment rather than borrowing $9 million debt? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Can you respond to that?
I can. This is a debt issuance that's going to be financed out of the warehouse district TIF. There are no general fund dollars that are anticipated to be spent. So the council, that's a policy decision for you to make if you want to take funds out of the general fund to pay that down. But I think we've been looking at this as saying that this is directly financed out of the warehouse district TIF and would be paid for with the proceeds that come out of that. It directly benefits those businesses and property owners that are in the warehouse district TIF. So that's the reason why we're recommending that.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just an informational question. Is this going to change at all the real estate tax rebate program that we have inside, either for existing properties or future properties? Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Councilmember Kelly, seconded by Councilmember Jackson. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
22-107 is a communication with a request to deny the site application for a Class C1 packaged goods liquor license with retail sale of alcohol for Family Dollar Stores, Inc., doing business as Family Dollar, 820 Northeast Jefferson, contingent upon compliance with all community development regulations, with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. And on your desk, there is a handout. There is a letter from Attorney James Bally, dated 3/21/22.
And Mr. Bally, thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Bally is the attorney for Family Dollar Stores, and he is present in our chambers in case any of you have any questions for him. Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine is not a question, but just a statement. And I am going to vote to deny this, request for a liquor license for many of the reasons that Investigator Slavens has stated in previous council meetings. And that area is a vulnerable area of the city. We currently have a In-N-Out store that already provides packaged liquor, and we've had 3 homicides in that area over the past year, in addition to an arson. Well, I don't know if it was an arson, ruled an arson, but a fire at another facility in the same strip mall that sold liquor as well. So based on the numbers of problems that we have had, I will not support granting Family Dollar a liquor license in this particular area. So with that, I'd like to approve the motion to deny.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Graham. Any more discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at unfinished business. 22-85 is a communication with a recommendation to waive the city's right of first refusal to acquire the Spirit of Peoria due to the lack of financial and business information concerning the proposed purchaser.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had a conversation with Mr. Greaves on March 9th where we had a text exchange back and forth, he and I did. I asked him if it would be there would be an opportunity for us to, review the maintenance logs and then also perform an appraisal on the boat. His response back to me was the offer to the city was condition-free. Buyer has accepted the vessel in its as-is, where-is condition. Allowing the city to perform any survey or appraisal would violate my agreement with Yacht Starship. So based upon that, I think it was clear that there was going to be no way that Mr. Greaves would allow us to review the maintenance logs or look at that. We didn't want to violate his agreement with Yacht Starship. So we come back to you this evening still with the staff recommendation that we not proceed with the purchase of the boat simply because there's not enough information that we feel to make a full assessment. If Mr. Greaves is able to get $1 million for the boat, we wish him well, and staff is prepared to certainly work on an RFP to get something ready to go to look at what might come after the Spirit if it were to leave, and we have that space on our riverfront.
Okay. Are there any questions for the manager or for legal counsel? Is there a motion? Councilmember Reckriegel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that best efforts have been done on both sides to be able to have discussions, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't thank J&J Packet for the wonderful experiences that they have brought to our city. And I think the conversation that's happened over the past couple of weeks since this was announced has really been because of that investment in time and energy that they've made into making our riverfront and our community a great place to call home. And it's over the past couple of weeks to hear the stories of why this place, this space was important, I think really does go to the heart of that. And for many, it's the fact that it's an access to the river. It's the ability to see where we live in a very different way than many of us are able to do on a day-to-day basis. And for that, I think that we need to definitely applaud J&J Packet, the Greaves family, and everybody who has been a part of that in any way, shape, or form. A big thank you. With that, too, in talking with our city manager, I know that he's got definite plans to be able to put out an RFI, to be able to bring in other considerations as to what is to fill that space. There's value in the ability to dock there. And we know, and nobody that I've talked to around the council has said anything different, then we know that the value of being able to have something there. And I think that that has been unanimously discussed. And that's why I think that over the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of conversations among all council members about how do we bridge this gap that we have in the city, and how do we be able to provide something there that can live up to the exemplary experiences that have been created there. So with that, I will make a motion to waive the claim of first right of refusal on this. And I look forward to having discussions around this council on how we can provide such an experience as has been provided for our citizens in another format. Thank you.
Seconded by Councilmember Sear. Other discussion? Councilmember Euler.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'd like to give privilege of the floor to Captain Alice Grady.
Captain.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Madam Mayor, City Council members, and the City of Peoria, and the region as a whole. Very used to public speaking. It's a little emotional, so I'll try to get through. I have been with the Spirit of Peoria since 1997. I did start a year after I got out of college and received my captain's license in 2007. And I was blindsided like everybody else with the sale of the boat. Historically, and as part of Peoria's heritage, Spirit is priceless. She is a small but integral part of our port system that you all heard about tonight. The amount of business on the river is truly amazing. We alone had 15 to 20 of those 27,000 employees. We had a few right here in town all the time. And the passengers who have come to Peoria to ride the boats, the Spirit of Peoria, the Julius Bell Swain before that, have come from all over the world. I had passengers from Australia and New Zealand, Switzerland, and Germany, all over the place. And they're of all ages and all walks of life. Carol, one of our favorites, she has done 25 overnight cruises and 25 themed cruises, which are lunch or dinner cruises. Joanne, she did 30 cruises with us over the period of years, and some of those was like 6 cruises a year. Many of passengers came on a weekly basis to do a sightseeing or one of our moonlight cruises to enjoy some of Peoria's live music scene. Most of our passengers traveled over 45 minutes just to come to Peoria to ride the boat for an hour-and-a-half cruise. But when they were here for that hour and a half, they'd spend much more time in the area because you've got to eat lunch. You might take in a show someplace else as well. I would say 90% of our overnight passengers, they've used a hotel in the area, either the night before or the night after the cruise. And many of our dinner cruise passengers did the same. So we really held a big impact on the businesses in this area. And we took the boat to Minneapolis, St. Paul in 2004. So we went down the Mississippi, or down Illinois, and then back up the Mississippi, clear up to Minnesota. In 2006, we went to Tall Stacks in Cincinnati. So down the Illinois, down the Mississippi, up the Ohio River. And in 2014, we helped the Belle of Louisville celebrate her 100th birthday in Louisville. And that introduced Peoria itself to thousands of people because our boat was there. And over the years, I've had many friends. I've trained countless deckhands. including Captain Dylan, nice older.
Hey, Captain.
I got him when he was 15. He was a baby, brand new to the world pretty much. And so he got his license at a very young age, 19. In fact, he just turned his birthday and got his license about the same week. I myself have performed over a dozen marriages on the boat. I have witnessed many proposals. I have met my own fiance through the work, and he proposed to me in the galley at one of the busiest times of a night during a murder mystery cruise. And I want to thank you for deferring this for a few more weeks to give yourself some time to think about the boat and what it means to you and to the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you for sharing your testimony. Councilman Euler.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. A lot of irony in the agenda topics tonight for discussion. First one, the discussion related to the Washington bus statue, and I'm going to steal some comments from others here. And first of all, Councilman Gray had mentioned that that's a legacy piece. Well, I would challenge that this vessel is very much a legacy piece. Former council member Morris was here and talked about the fact that they raised money to put that bust on display here. Well, had we put any true effort into this, we could have raised money to do the same. I expected to show up to the first meeting on this topic to discuss what options there were to solve this. Instead, we just have gone in circles trying to prove a legitimate deal illegitimate, and now we've run the clock out, which is very unfortunate. We talked about waterways tonight and the importance that our waterway is to us and that others look to our leadership on our waterway, yet we're going to let the vessel that adorns our waterway head down the river. And then we talked about giving away money to this new RISE program. Well, I certainly hope that some of that RISE money can help the folks that are going to lose their job when the boat is gone. We've spent way too much time talking about this being a business and not what a legacy piece this is to us and what it means to who we are. We have a museum that we want to invest money into, so we go out and raise taxes to pay for that. We should have been talking about the fact that this is more of a museum piece to us and to our community and a flagship of who we are, and not so much about what are the business dollars and cents of this discussion. And the numbers that we've gotten have not proven that this is an illegitimate deal or an illegitimate financial decision to us. At one point this week, someone gave me a picture of a paddle boat, much like the Spirit of Peoria, that sat on our riverfront in 1906. We are a river town. We pride ourselves on being a river town, yet we have hardly been talking about the fact that river town is part of our history. In the 90s, this boat appraised for $2 million. I can't imagine that it is more than 50% depreciated in that amount of time, and watching how the boat market goes and the impact that has over time. And I've seen many boats out there that are 50% plus in a 20-year period. The discussion has surrounded lack of financial information and business information. The agreement that we have was done by the city of Peoria when this was made. The information that we can and cannot get is because of the city of Peoria. This is not because someone doesn't want to give us what they have. It's because this is what we agreed to, yet we have tried to paint this picture in a very different light. There has been no legitimate effort to deal with this, to solve this problem, to protect something that is critically important to our riverfront. It has been an effort from the beginning to let it set sail, and I'm completely disheartened with how this entire thing has gone from day one. I think that it is a poor reflection on the city of Peoria and the leadership, and I will not be voting for this. Thank you.
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Captain, for your emotional remarks tonight. And, just hearing everything you were saying was taking me to my own nostalgia of a kid riding the Spirit of Peoria for various summer camps and things of that nature. And so I do understand how important it is to our riverfront. And I respect the comments of my colleague, Councilman Euler, of what he is saying as well, too, because no one around the horseshoe wants to see the Spirit of Peoria set sail. We know we're a river town. We know we have the Peoria Rivermen. I mean, the river is in our DNA. And I think the challenge that we have here right now is making just the best decision on behalf of the taxpayers. And that's the challenge that I personally am facing right now, is what's the best thing for the taxpayers. And the potential of buying the boat and then possibly brokeraging a deal to a private entity, is it possible? Maybe, maybe not. And then also, too, I think if we do buy the boat, for the period of time that we're going to need to do to try to get someone to buy the boat, what happens to the employees of the boat? Who is paying them as we are trying to brokerage this deal? Who is possibly covering their benefits? I'm sure they have health and dental, depending on their status with the boat. So there's a lot of variables in this. It isn't just a matter of buying the boat, trying to brokerage a deal, and it just happens overnight. And so that makes a decision. There's so many variables in this, and it's not an easy decision. This is an emotional decision. I mean, I knew I was going to have to make some hard decisions when I got elected to the council, but I did not see this one coming. And we all know, as Captain said, this came out of nowhere, and no one is making this decision half-heartedly. So regardless of what happens tonight, my best intentions and wishes are with those, especially those employees who this is going to affect their livelihood, and also those who have the memories of the Spirit of Peoria. It will affect them as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Rodrigo?
Just for clarification to the city manager, in your conversations with J&J Packett or the Grease family, the boat is the only thing that is for sale currently at this time, correct?
That is correct.
And is it that the business entity itself has already sold, or what is the status of the business entity?
Mr. Greaves and I did not discuss that directly. He did have some conversations with a third party that third party then indicated back to me that what's really just for sale is just the boat. We have nothing to do with the business, and the website is still up, but they're not taking any reservations.
Okay. So at this time, then we've not been able to get any financial information, which I think I'm sorry, but I cannot believe that there's a single person around this horseshoe that would spend an amount of $1 million of taxpayer money without doing a little bit of due diligence on that. Shame on us. Shame on us if we think that our taxpayers expect better than us. This is not an easy decision for any of us. Nobody wants to see the Spirit of Peoria not down there. But to sit here and say, and my phones have been ringing, my emails have been ringing, to sit here and say spend $1 million and not know a single dime, that's not what our taxpayers are saying. So don't kid yourself. It's easy to stand on platitudes whenever you know that you're not going to be the deciding vote on this. But in reality, our taxpayers do not want us in the boat business, especially when we don't even know what that business is. Second of all, there isn't a business right now, it's a boat. And there are no future reservations, so effectively the business has been shut down. That has nothing to do with the love that we have for the Spirit of Peoria and the legacy that it has provided. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Regenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's pretty clear that the emotions run high on this topic, and whether you look at the discussion we've had here these last couple meetings or the social media feedback that many people have had. But I think something we're missing here is that the manager said, and Councilman Ruckriegel reiterated that we've instructed staff to, there's already work for an RFP in place to replace it. And as much as we don't want to see the spirit leave. And again, I shared some personal stories last time. I mean, we've all got those memories and the legacy of what that means. I think it's really important to go back to that Julia Bell Swain and the saga of when that left and the hole that left. And I think, and I was just a kid then, but my understanding is that it was Jim Jumer of Jumer's Castle Lodge fame that went ahead, took the initiative, commissioned the construction of the Spirit of Peoria, and connecting some dots, and forgive me, Corporation Counsel, for not knowing if all these dots are 100% accurate, but it seems that experience of losing the Julia Bell is what led to the agreement that gave the city the right of first refusal. Clearly, if we were putting an agreement like that in place today, we would ask for different financial data than they did in 1996 when that was put together, because it really does leave us, as Councilman Reckriegel pointed out, in a lurch to really know what kind of business that is. And we can't be spending that kind of money without knowing that. I know you can't put this in the RFP, Mr. Manager, but it looks like the gallery is got a number of people that would probably be first in line to apply for a job if a new boat would come to Peoria, and the heritage and stories that they could tell would be most valuable. But I think, putting the emotion aside for a minute, the reasonable course of action for us is to waive this right of first refusal and move ahead in putting out a request to see who in the boat business would be interested in using the facilities that we have on our riverfront to fill that void. So with a heavy heart, I will be supporting the motion to waive that right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like some clarification, because the manager responded to Councilman Ruckriegel's question that there has been no financial documentation provided, and he said that is correct. Well, the financial documentation that has been sent to us, I'd like to know what that was for if it was not for this.
No, I wanted to clarify that we received the S-Corp filings, income tax filings from G&G Packet, showing the information over the last 11 years of the operation of the boat. We are not buying the business. That's not what is in front of the council. What's in front of the council is the purchase of the boat, and that's it. There was never any contemplation in the redevelopment agreement for the city to ever buy G&G Packet Company. That was never indicated. Council never directed staff to ask, could we buy the business? That was never directed to us to do that. What we did is we got the financial information to determine if this was a bona fide offer per the redevelopment agreement. That's what we've been trying to get to. It took a while to get that information, and then finally, Mr. Greaves said the boat, because we're not buying the business. So in that instant, that's what we have. He shared with us his financial information, which we asked for, and he was very gracious in sharing that information with us.
So if we find the financials that say that the boat does make money irrelevant, why would we request it? Why would we share it? And why would we not talk about it if we find that to be irrelevant information? Because to me, that's been the biggest discussion that has gone on for 2 months, is whether or not it makes money, whether or not it would make money, and whether or not we're risking or wasting taxpayer dollars.
Councilman, I would just say we're not buying the business. We're not buying the payroll. We're not buying any of the operations. The only thing the council has in front of it is buying the actual asset, the boat, period.
Well, we got what we needed there. Thank you.
Seeing no more lights on, there's a motion to waive the city's right of first refusal to acquire the Spirit of Peoria. Okay, there is another light. Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. as other council members have stated, this is just a struggle. It's a terrible decision that we're faced with making. But I don't know how, as stewards of the taxpayers, we could move forward with the sale of this boat without knowing what it's appraised, what it's worth, what kind of shape it's in. You know, the current owner won't even let us on the boat to do an inspection or our own appraisal. We, you know, have a duty, and $1 million is a lot of money. And then what do we do if we do buy the boat? We're not in the business of managing or running a boat. You know, it's just not not something that I think we should be doing without looking at the financials. And the agreement does say that we have a right to reasonable financial and business information concerning the proposed purchase. And I know the legal counsel's asked for it over and over again, and we're not getting that information. So we cannot, I cannot, as a city council member, move forward and support a sale of or purchasing the boat without more information. One question I do have, because what's before us is to waive the right of first refusal. Can you go through again, I know we don't have much time, what the time frame is and what basically happens if we don't waive that right?
Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The lease with G&G Packet Company expires on April 30th. So if you were to take no action, or if this vote were not to be approved, the right of first refusal period would continue until April 30th because you have 90 days from when we first received it. That coincides with the actual expiration of the lease.
So technically, we still have 6 weeks.
Until April 30th.
I mean, it's pretty clear from the communication with the city manager, from the owner, that he's not willing to share any information that we've been requesting.
That is correct.
It just seems like there should be more that we can do to get him to give us that information or let us on the boat to do an appraisal or an inspection, or at least look at the maintenance records, which I believe he said he provided to the purchaser or the person who's made the offer.
I believe that he waived the maintenance logs being shared with the other purchaser. So we have to follow the terms and conditions that were laid out in the purchase contract with Yacht Starship.
Correct. And the purchase agreement did not contemplate an appraisal, and it waived a sea trial, and there was no inspection done.
Okay, I thought I had read in the material, though, that he did provide, I thought I read that he had provided records of maintenance of the boat, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
So I am not in favor. I do not support purchasing the boat at this time. I do think it seems like we still have some time to maneuver and try to put pressure on figuring out what the worth of the boat is. And I would prefer to move forward that way. But that's just, my position.
Please cast your ballots. Motion passes with 3 nays: Graham, Jensen, and Euler.
22-058 is a communication with a request to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Officers and Employees, Division 7, Public Safety Benefits, Section 2-350, Public Safety Benefits Act of the Code of the City of Peoria. And on your desk, there is a handout of the revised ordinance.
Mr. Manager, Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Council knows, since the Illinois Supreme Court issued a ruling indicating that no home rule municipality had the authority to make definitions that they felt were contrary to case law as to placebo claims, the city has been working to amend and revise our established placebo ordinance. What you have in front of you after all the attorneys have redlined and revised and changed words back and forth is what we hope is the third, might be fourth now, final version that we are proposing for approval tonight.
Any questions for Council? Councilmember Graham?
I think staff, you Corporation Council, done a great job working with our units and coming to this this agreement and buy-in to adopt this ordinance. So I would so move to adopt the ordinance amending the Chapter 2 as outlined.
The motion was to
adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 7, Section 2-350, Public Safety Benefits Act, Code of the City of Peoria.
seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
Is there any additional unfinished business?
Is there any other unfinished business?
Then we are at new business.
Councilmember Sear?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Manager, I'd like to ask for a report back. I've been here 5 years now. I've seen a lot of different reports around different cities in the state of Illinois. I think we need to start the conversation that if we're not going to get any help from the state of Illinois about our liability for the pension, I'd like for you to report back to us what we can do, this body here, to try to save our taxpayers money or come with some type of plan, if we can. I'd like to know if we have any options for the city of Peoria to put ourselves and our taxpayers in a better position for the next 18 years. Is that possible?
We'll do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sometime this week, a neighbor and resident brought to my attention that he tried to download the Peoria Care apps on his new Android device, and he got a message that it's not compatible with that Android device, with the new software on the Android devices. I mentioned this to Director Doolin, but I don't know if you have an answer, if the city staff's working on getting that fixed, if you know anything about it, if you can look into it. And
We'll be happy to look into it and get your report back, and we'll email council with that response.
Okay.
I'm not aware that it's not working with the Android app, but we'll certainly look into that and see why.
And then if that is true, we'll work on getting it so it is usable on Android devices.
We're in the process of transitioning our website and looking at a new app for Peoria Cares, so that's one of the items that we'll be looking at and taking that into consideration. But we'll get you a full report back on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to apologize to the council and to the manager and to the staff for something I said back in January. I'm sure you all remember this. Nevertheless, I stated that in 2015, when we raised the fee for rental registration, that increase went to roads. And that is not so. That puts a little cloud over our administration that I'm sorry that I created. So that full increase in rental registration in 2015 went to inspections, things related to rental registration. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks for that clarification, Councilman. Any other new business? Madam Clerk?
We are at citizens' opportunity to address the City Council and Town Board.
Mr. Jesse McGowan, Jr.
Jesse McGowan Jr., 707 East Thrush, Peoria, Illinois. I want to start off by thanking Sid for meeting with us today, having this conversation, a nice conversation. I'm here tonight to talk about the crime situation we have here in the city. I would like for the City Council to pass an ordinance dealing with the parental responsibility and station adjustment for juveniles. Right now, we have a problem that we cannot arrest and incarcerate our way out of, especially when it comes to juveniles. When you arrest a juvenile for a minor or medium violation, you haven't solved the problem. You've created several problems. Created a problem for the schools, for the parents, for the community, for the police. Everybody has a problem. We have to find a way to deal with juveniles better than arresting and conviction. The proposal I left on each one of y'all's desk about, 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago would deal with most of that stuff. You know, we're holding the parents responsible, but we're also providing assistance to the parents. Because many parents, like I say, we have community members, we have school members, we have parents on board with this proposal. Parents are asking for help. You know, I hear a lot of people say it's the parents' fault, it's the parents' responsibility. Parents need help. If a parent came to you and said, hey, look here, I have a drug problem, you'd find help for them. If they say, I can't pay my rent, we'd find help for them. The most precious commodity that we have is our children, and a parent can't get help for them. And if anybody still has that package I left with you, on page 4, it's called severe, the severe kids. These are the children that we are leaving behind. They're forgotten. There are kids that are out here in these streets. They're not in school. They're not in any programs. They're out here. 50% of your daytime crimes are committed by these kids. This carjacking, house burglaries, car thefts. You know, you go to many service there, you see kids standing around the corner waiting for somebody to leave a car. These kids should be in school. And I'm talking about the juvenile. I'm not talking about the adults. The arresting and convictions, and this is something you're going to have to address. I think everyone behind this horseshoe here knows that stop and frisk is illegal. We've tolerated it because we want to get rid of the crime too. But every time something happens, we suffer the consequences. You know, it's less than 5% of these children that's causing 90% of the problems. But the entire chocolate community is being affected by it. You know, and this goes all the way back through history. You know, one of us are accused of doing something. We got Rosewood, we got Tulsa, Springfield. I mean, there's many places where the entire community is destroyed because of an allegation made by one. This is the same thing we're doing today. You know, 5% of the kids out there that crazy, the entire community, the South Side, East Bluff, we're all suffering for it. You know, and we're willing to put up with it because we want to beat those numbers for 2020. I know y'all use a number for 2021. We're not doing it 2021. We're going to 2020. Those are the numbers we're planning to beat this year. So, and we need help. We got, like I said, we got the community, the school, and the parents. We need the city and the police department on board to get these kids. And one of our biggest problems we have to look at, and this is why the other programs we keep talking about are not handling these problems. The police arresting children. They have to do the job. I'm not criticizing the chief of arresting juvenile, but we have to do something with these children. We can't just turn them loose. We can't just act like they don't exist. We have to provide support for these parents to keep these kids in school. Right now, if I got 3 kids got released from JDC today, as a parent, what can I do with them tomorrow morning when I get ready to go to work? I have no backup plan. There's nobody to back. If I don't have, and I'm telling you, I'm talking from experience because I was a single parent. I was working in Dwight. I got a call from the hospital and my son was there. I had nobody to call. I had to rush back from Dwight all the way back to Peoria. There are people here now that lost their jobs because there was a cash register. They had to leave when their children were in trouble and there was no other cash register. Other people have quit their jobs. We have got to find some kind of support system for these children that has nowhere to go. You know, it's all addressing that issue, and I wish I could have more time, or maybe I can meet with some of the rest of y'all because there are other things I need to discuss here, but I don't have the time to do it. But we got programs available. We need to get that taken care of. And I know more I need to say, but one thing I want to touch on before we leave here are the crime scenes. You know, I talked to Jay Bahar the other day. A child going to school should not have to walk past and see blood. Hey, man, this old boy was shot the other day. There should be. We have a contract with someone that goes to boarders of houses, things like when windows get broke. Why can't we get a contract with a cleaning company to go and, right now what the fire department does, they spray bleach on it and spray water on it and wash it off. That blood is still there. You can still see, you go into those crime scenes, the blood is still there. We need to take these kids, get that blood up, a cleaning company that has the material to get that off of there, scrub it real good, and get that up so kids going to school don't have to walk through that blood. But there are other things about it. My time is up. But anyway, I'd like for y'all to look that proposal over. Let's get something done with these kids. Get these kids off the street. Get them into some kind of program. Look under the severe issue. The chief and I, we've talked about. We pretty much agree on everything that's going on. It just except how to get it done. So if I could get y'all to pass an ordinance, parental responsibility, the Juvenile Justice Act, those things going hand in hand with the community, the mental health professionals, the parents, and the kids, everybody working together, we can solve these problems. We've got to get something done with these kids before it gets too late. And we can't keep arresting people out of this situation.
Mr. Charles Rutherford? Is Mr. Charles Rutherford present? Madam Clerk, are there any other cards?
No, I have not received any other comments.
Okay, thank you.
So we are at adjournment.
Okay, can I get a motion? Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilmember Sear. Please cast your ballots. Thank you for your service. We're adjourned.